We're coming to you hot and live from WBCR. So last week was our introductory episode, and today we're going to be recapping our upcoming issue 12.
Our last of the semester. So applause for that because we got through it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lewis.
So, yeah.
And we are here with Allison Dubrow, who you'll be hearing from a little later as she talks about some news that is not necessarily related to campus, but still newsworthy around the city, the state, the world. So you'll be hearing from her later. And, of course, our board op, Lewis.
Yes, from the Get Back. All good fun here. But, yeah, we first wanted to introduce Allison and, have you all listeners know a little bit about her. So, Allison.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. So, not to put you on the spot, but
to put you on the spot.
Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. What are you majoring into?
All right. Well, I'm majoring in journalism and media studies, and I have my minor is political science. So I'm a junior, hoping to graduate in 2024, spring of 2024 to be exact. And yeah, I'm really glad you guys let me come on your show and do the news ripped from the headlines. I've been watching the news since middle school. A lot of people tell me that's weird that I like watching the news, but what can I do? I enjoy it.
Yeah, we're all inundated by it, so might as well, right?
Yep.
Find the positive. But yeah, and thank you, Allison, for ripping the headlines for us later in this episode and moving forward. But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit of why we decided to go on the air in the first place. So, Michaela?
Well, as hopefully many listeners know, WBCR is back for the first time since the start of the pandemic, and there are the lovely president and vice president of WBCR, Kaylin, who is our photo editor at the Vanguard. So she double dips, and she does a great job at it. And JD Duncan, who is the president, they approached us and asked us if we'd like a segment, and it took a little bit for us to figure out how we would actually speak on the radio because we are writers. Yeah. Though we can talk for a very long time, our forte is writing. And we kind of hashed it out and figured out, let's get some exposure for the Vanguard. Not many people on campus know about the newspaper. So the more that we can get the word out there for the BC community, we figured, why not try something different?
Yeah. And yeah, as Michaela mentioned, we're writers by trade and by passion, I guess. I don't know the saying, but yeah, so we're naturally just writers. So it took some time for us to warm up to the idea, but now we're here. And generally speaking, we just wanted to make sure that, the news that we reported or the profiles that we have reached a larger audience beyond, our publication online. So yeah, and that's why we decided to do WBCR's this, new show. And so we're also going to talk a little bit about the process of actually getting these stories out. So, Michaela, I know you've had now 12 issues under your belt as managing editor.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, you're not new to this. This is your second year, so you've kind of got it down pat to a science.
I have. Who knows? Maybe I haven't.
Some kind of weird science that we figure out every week. But a typical week for us from start to finish is a little chaotic, actually. But we start off with, I guess we could start off with our meeting. So we meet with our team and we talk about what's going to be in the next issue, how to reach out to people, sharing contacts. And it's really, I think, our little community effort to get it all together because there's just so many sections going on. At once, we have 5 sections at the paper. We have news, features, arts, sports, and opinions. And everybody comes together and helps each other out. So at that meeting, we kind of have our little budget going and we assign and work out kinks and that sort of thing. And then we reach out and we write.
We write away, yeah. That's true. So yeah, it's basically a tight turnaround too. We have pretty much a week for most of our issues, sometimes 2 weeks. But generally speaking, we try our best to get the word out, trying to find as much stories as we can, and of course, looking for people to cover different stories. I would have to say that so far we have some really involved writers and incredibly involved editors. So we have a strong but small team. And I guess that's what counts. Quality, not quantity, as they say. So yeah, that's sort of a little bit about our process. And we publish right now online on Wednesdays. And moving forward in the spring, we're hoping to get copies back on the stands and back near you physically on campus on Thursdays. So keep an eye out for that in the spring.
And with that, let's start recapping this last issue of the semester.
Yep. So this issue is Catch You in the Spring, coming out tomorrow. We are going to catch you in the spring because this is our final fall issue. So yeah, and Michaela, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. So with this issue, we decided that instead of a headline that kind of is a little more exciting or a piece that needs more attention drawn to it, we thought we would just end off nicely recapping the semester. And once again, our lovely photo editor, Kaylin, she created a great cover art that recapped all of our past 11 issues. And it's one of my favorite covers so far.
Honestly.
So great job to Kaylin. I think it's really nice and really artistic.
Yes.
So we have that going. And we'll start with recapping a news piece that I wrote. It's about updates on the Whitman damages and construction by Roosevelt Hall. So I don't know if anybody has noticed. I don't know how you can't notice. There's always some kind of loud noise or something going on by Roosevelt right now the past, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? There's a lot of construction going on by Roosevelt Hall near the tennis courts. And I kind of wanted to dive into what that was about, so I went searching and asking around. And as I was doing that, going to a class last week, I noticed that the basement of Whitman Hall near the new Workshop Theater, the ceiling completely collapsed and there was water damage everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
So I went digging for those answers as well, and I found some interesting things. We had some really crazy rain last week, so after talking to some people from various offices on campus, that rain was what caused the ceiling collapse in Whitman. And the construction by Roosevelt was, I think there's just issues with piping into the West End building, and so literal trenches were dug up next to Roosevelt. So PSA, if you want to access the tennis courts, you can't do it the normal way. There's a separate entrance right now, though I don't know why you would play tennis in December, but, in case you want to. It's cold, but, whatever.
Yeah.
And also just that one entrance exit to Roosevelt is not accessible at the moment, so just a PSA.
PSA, yeah. You know what's so funny? I think Mother Nature was really like, oh, Michaela's reporting on, stuff like this. Let me give her some more content.
Let's make things exciting.
Yeah. Have a ceiling collapse before you. But yeah, so, and also in tomorrow's issue, our current news editor, Rodwan Faraj, he delves into the MTA proposing to raise the fare to $2.90 currently, if anybody is a New Yorker riding the MTA. A train ride or a bus ride on the MTA is currently $2.75. So that means an extra 15 cents. That means hiking up the price by 5.5%. A little maths for you at this hour. But yeah. And currently, the MTA is justifying, this proposal by saying that they are currently, I keep saying currently because, it's current. They have a $600 million budget deficit that they need to address. And they say, well, homies, if we don't hike it right now, it's going to get worse. So that's the MTA for you. Yeah. And they haven't raised the fare so far since 2015 when they raised it to $2.75. And they typically increase the fare in increments of 4% every 2 years to 3 years since 2009. So that is going to be a news story for tomorrow that, again, Rod 1 has covered. And moving into features, where I started no? Okay. I'm only excited.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, so features. So we have some features for tomorrow, one of them including a profile on BC's Newman Catholic Center. It's called By Community Through Faith, BC's Newman Catholic Center. So I sat down on a Zoom call with 3 members from the center, and we pretty much just hashed out what Newman is all about and what exactly they do. And so they provide different services for Catholics, Christians, and, non-religiously affiliated people. And overall, they want to make sure that they grow their community even more. And they have Bible studies. They have different events that are also secular, some parties here and there. In their place, they actually have a house on Glenwood Road where they share with Kappa Sigma. It's a fraternity here on campus, too. And they share that space to host all their events and to, unite as a community. So that's going to be a feature for tomorrow if you're interested in reading.
Question. Any idea why that fraternity is in Newman and not in the student center with the others?
That's an interesting point. You know what, Caleb?
It's okay if you don't know. I just was wondering if you maybe found out.
You know what? That's a great question.
Well, that's a story for next semester.
Story for next semester. And yeah, but that's a great question. What I do know, though, that some fraternities, I'm not sure if this is an issue for all fraternities or sororities or Greek life on campus, but what I know, at least like 2 or 3 don't have their own space.
Oh.
So they don't have, some clubs like PRA or Women of Color. They have some space in Web or, of course, the Vanguard. We have our office space. But I don't think that some fraternities or sororities actually have an office space. I know that Greek Council has their own space in the student center. So I'm not sure how that relationship came about. But, yeah, they collaborate on different events and they're friends. So
hey, that works.
That works, yeah.
And moving on, in our 12th issue, we're going to talk about some arts pieces. One of them being a past professor at Brooklyn College, Tanya Leone. She received the Kennedy Center Honor this past, I want to say 2 weeks ago or last week. So the Kennedy Center Honor is one of the most prestigious awards or honors that people in the arts and entertainment industry can receive. This happens every year, and it's a small group of people who are honored with this every year in Washington. And so past professor, she's now retired, Tanya Leone, was actually the first CUNY staff member to receive this award. So, and the fact that she hailed from Brooklyn College is really nice. So we have another award that we can boast about. So she received this honor with the Irish rock band U2, Gladys Knight, who's the Empress of Soul, the Queen of Christian Pop, Amy Grant, and George Clooney. So pretty interesting that she has a great resume. I really loved reading about her. She was a founding member of the Dance Theater of Harlem and definitely one of its first directors. I feel like she also might still be the director. But she also co-founded the American Composers Orchestra, and she's made some really great strides in the music world. She was here for 35 years at Brooklyn College, and 30 of them she was a professor at the Grad Center for the PhD in composition, I believe. So she did a lot of stuff here. She oversaw a bunch of the programs in the Conservatory of Music at Brooklyn College, and she also won a Pulitzer Prize for Music in 2021. So that was for her work entitled Stride, which was commissioned and premiered by the New York Philharmonic. And she was also inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and named a USA Fellow in 2018. She's done a lot, and this is just one more prestigious award that she can add to her resume, and I thought it was just really nice to read about her and everything she's accomplished. And she's from Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Yes, we love Cuba. Shout out to Cuba. Okay. But yeah, and that piece, again, was written by your lovely co-host here, Michaela Arlia. Yeah, and so that's going to be out by tomorrow online. And a shameless little plug, you can check out these articles and much more that we're going to be delving into in this episode on vanguard.blog.brooklyn.edu. And now for our next piece, we're also going to be delving into art. So our lovely editor, arts editor, Samia Swar, she delved into the recent play and production by the BC Theater Department. It's called In the Next Room, or the Vibrator Play. And so this play was a dramedy, and from what I hear, it was really beautifully done. It combined elements of drama and comedy, and pretty much it talked about women hysteria, but in a way that was clever, according to Samia.
I also heard it was really long.
Hmm.
One of the longer ones that the department has done. So it must have been good if there's a lot of content in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't want to give you any spoilers, so make sure to check it out and, really delve in and immerse into that experience with Samia tomorrow online.
And now transitioning into a different section. We talked about arts for a little bit. Now we're going to go into opinions. And this opinion that we're going to highlight is written by our staff writer, Shay Stevenson, who we had on last week, who will be the incoming opinions editor in the spring. And he wrote an opinion about EHS housing and how it is not the only option. So for those of you who don't know, Brooklyn College does not have an official housing, I guess you could say, option. There are no dorms for Brooklyn College. There used to be, but they were closed, I believe, in 2021.
Yeah, and the college would say that they weren't affiliated, but it did have their name there, so interesting.
So they were affiliated. But EHS housing is an outside source that Brooklyn College and most other colleges and universities in New York kind of are semi-affiliated with. There's various buildings across the city, if I'm not mistaken, where, the way Shay explained it informally is that you can be in a room on the same floor as someone who goes to Pace or someone who goes to Columbia. So most colleges and universities will use this outside company to source or house their students. And it closed down the Brooklyn location. They kind of kicked everyone out this December. So
Yeah.
Shay's been on the lookout for new housing. So I guess you could say that this opinion by Shay was a letter to EHS.
Yes, a very complicated love letter to EHS. Shay also admits, sure, for the price and the location, I guess the location and the convenience of booking, a dorm with EHS is great. But again, there are better alternatives. So now we're going to be delving into an opinion from yours truly, Gabriela Flores. So I delved into the World Cup.
Well, it's not really an opinion. I think we should highlight that. You created your own name for this one.
I called it a sportinian. So it's sports and opinion because I go a little bit ham in the end.
And it took me an hour to figure out what that was.
Yes, which was funny, but it's all right. We're sleep-deprived editors, FYI. But yeah, so I delved into the quarterfinals of the FIFA Cup right now. The 4 countries that are, trying to battle it out for a spot in the finals are Argentina, Croatia, France, and Morocco. Shout out to Morocco.
Making history.
Making history as the first African country to go into the semifinals for the FIFA Cup. So I delved into that and basically, asking the reader to remember both the good and the bad of this World Cup. Besides just the games being played on the field in Qatar, there's also a lot to keep in mind of how those fields even got there in the first place, right? The intense labor and the deaths from migrant workers to build those 7 stadiums that are currently in Qatar. And that's going to be available tomorrow online at vanguard.blog.brooklyn.edu.
And before we continue on any other stories, we wanted to highlight this issue. We have a farewell piece. One of our staff is leaving this semester because he's graduating, our layout editor, Anakin Jackson. So we will miss Anakin, but he has done some great work for us in putting out the issues that you see every week, and we want to thank him for everything. And you can catch his farewell piece that he's written to the readers tomorrow as well.
Yes, the talented, multi-talented filmmaker, Anakin Jackson. But yeah, so he's going to be dearly missed, and tomorrow is going to be the last issue that he's going to be working on for the layout. So please be sure to check that out and check Anakin's lovely work out. So now we are going to head into break, and we'll catch you in a bit. All right. Hello. We are back, and we're here with our lovely sports editor, Owen Russell. So, hello, Owen.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming. And yeah, so to give a little background on Owen, Owen is our sports editor. He's in his second year as a sports editor at the Vanguard. And last year in the New York Press Association's Better Newspaper Contest, Owen led the sports team to earn first place for sports coverage. So
Congrats,
round
Owen.
of applause.
Thank you.
Yes. And Owen himself picked up a third place award for best feature. So
Please.
Round of applause.
You make it sound like I know what I'm doing.
No, you do. All right. So, Owen, before we, delve into your story that you covered for this week, introduce yourself and why did you decide to join the Vanguard?
Of course. As was stated, my name is Owen Russell. I'm a senior here at Brooklyn College, but I joined the Vanguard a little over a year ago. I just really love writing and the opportunity to kind of play around with my own voice. I guess I'm a narcissist that way. But so I saw that there was an opening for the Vanguard, and I've always loved sports, and so I applied, and it's just been it's been a great experience so far.
All right. We thank you for joining us. And obviously you've brought some really great stuff to the Vanguard in this position. So to kind of go into the piece that you wrote for this issue, which is a really cool piece. So tell us a little bit about it, what it is, what made you want to kind of go about writing it. So just for our listeners, Owen wrote a piece about his 10 picks for the Baseball Writers of American Association Hall of Fame. And it's not a real ballot, just to put that out there. It's just something for fun, I guess, but also passion. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something I can't take credit for it. So our previous managing editor, John Schilling, he wrote one of his own, and I loved the idea. I thought it was such an incredible piece that I thought it would be great to carry that forward into this semester. I'm a very opinionated person, I guess, when it comes to baseball, life in general. But so I thought it would be a great opportunity to put my opinions out there. And for anybody that doesn't know, so the piece is 10 players that I voted for that I believe should receive a vote for the Hall of Fame. Because the system, how it works, is there's every year there is a ballot of players who played over 10 years in the major leagues and who are eligible for the Hall of Fame. That list is, I don't know, somewhere around 30 people, 30 players. And then voters are allowed to vote for up to 10 players. You don't have to vote for any, so sometimes they vote for 0, which I find horrible. So I've always wanted to vote for 10, so I took this opportunity to vote for the 10 players I think most deserving of the Hall of Fame. And players need 75% of the vote to make it into the Hall of Fame, so very rarely there's never really a big class of players that make it in. Sometimes there's nobody, which is also, I think, horrible. But you also need 5% of the vote to stay on the ballot, so some players don't even last a full year, which, again, I think is horrible. So I wanted to kind of right those wrongs in my ballot, and it's kind of explained in the piece a little more, but that was my philosophy.
Yeah, definitely. And you seem like an avid baseball fan, so is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like seem is an understatement.
Yeah, we know pretty much. But yeah, so what kind of just got your interest into baseball started?
Yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting. I was a baseball fan for when I was young. My dad used to take my brother and I to Yankees games. I remember we would go all the way up to the nosebleeds, and back then, I don't know if you still can. Yankee Stadium has kind of got very expensive, but back then you could bring in outside food, or maybe we just snuck it in. I'm not really sure, but we would bring in this big bucket of fried chicken, and it felt normal at the time. I was a child. Nowadays, I would never do that at Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you're allowed to, but so that was a lot of fun. And then we stopped kind of going to games for a while, so my interest in baseball kind of lapsed. And then when the pandemic first hit, the MLB made their subscription free to everybody, so you could go back and watch old games that they had recorded. So I had done a lot of that, and I was I wanted to get back into baseball, and I kind of dove head first, and it's become my favorite sport.
Yeah, and good thing that you, I guess, relit that flame in baseball. But yeah, so can you give us a brief rundown of your picks that are going to be featured tomorrow?
Sure, absolutely. So I voted for 10 players. I won't say all the 10 that I voted for right now, but I kind of broke it up into sections. And so if I'm getting this correct, but the sections are my no-brainers, players that I believe deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but because of some shady stuff that they did during their career, they probably won't get in. Those are cheaters. Then I have a section just for relief pitchers, because my sports soapbox that I like to get on is that I believe there are so many things, whether it be in baseball or other sports, where there are people who are undervalued because of their position or because of whatever reason. And so I kind of wanted to take that opportunity to highlight 2 pitchers that I feel like deserve a vote. And then there were finally just these players that I considered on the borderline, which would be because there are so many players that I think are worthy of a vote, but you can only vote for 10. And so just to briefly summarize some of those players, my no-brainers, I picked Todd Helton and Scott Rowland, who played for a long time. Todd Helton for the Rockies. Rowland played around the National League for the Cardinals and the Reds for a time. And they're both kind of like these standout players who were not very flashy, not very energetic, but they had these incredible resumes and these incredible careers, and to do it for so long, I think that I personally thought that they were the best players on the ballot, and I think that they have the best case of getting in the Hall of Fame. And then, as for some of the cheaters, I threw A-Rod a vote. I know A-Rod is kind of like a controversial figure, even here in New York. But, I mean, the man has 696 home runs. He's one of the best baseball players to ever live. But, the steroids, obviously, big issue. Carlos Beltran also, who never did steroids. He played a long time for the Mets. But when he was on the Astros his last year, he got caught up in their sign-stealing scandal. And he's the first player from that team to appear on a Hall of Fame ballot. And I think that's going to taint his legacy. But I personally voted for him. Relief pitchers. One of the relief pitchers that I voted for was K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, another player that played for a time with the Mets. And I think that he's kind of a borderline player, Hall of Fame player to me, but he was one of the most electric closers ever. He has the most saves in a season with 62. It's kind of just something I don't think we'll ever see again. And I think that for that reason, he deserves at least a vote. And some of the other players that I voted for, Andy Pettitte, longtime Yankee, who may not have the best resume in terms of his ERA, that's earned run average, but he's like the winningest pitcher in postseason history, and baseball's been around for 150 years. That's a huge accomplishment, and I think that he's super undervalued. And even Gary Sheffield, I voted for. And if you don't know baseball, Sheffield has one of the craziest batting stances ever. He would wag his bat around constantly up until the time of the pitch, and then still he crushed over 500 home runs. So these are just some of the players that I voted for, and some of them might be oddball picks, but these are the players that I felt most connected to, and I feel deserved a vote on the ballot.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the baseball crash course for those of us
Of course.
Who are not
baseball fans.
Yeah.
So, Owen, just to wrap up a little bit, you will be in the group of us who will be sadly leaving in the spring and moving on. So, do you have any exciting plans, either journalism, not journalism, to get to after graduation?
Yeah, it's the answer is no. I have nothing in stone right now. I'm kind of going to take a little while to figure out what I want to do and where I want to be. I love journalism, but also I love screenwriting, making movies. So I'm just going to kind of see where either of those passions can take me. I might end up moving back in with my parents, so that's very exciting, huge development. But we'll see, hopefully something will come along that piques my interest and can also sustain my living.
And fun fact, Owen is a man of many hats. He also is the president of the Film Society.
Yes, the Film Society.
At Brooklyn College. So, doing some great things in many different departments.
Yes.
We spread ourselves thin at the Vanguard.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, and hopefully you never stop writing, because definitely a blessing to the world,
Thank you.
But yeah, and are there any stories that you're interested in covering for the spring moving forward?
It's challenging to think about, because with sports, I've been lucky to kind of fall into a lot of great stories. I've had alumni reach out and want me to cover their past teams, and I've had a great time doing that. And I've kind of done a lot of some of the stuff that I've done at the Vanguard has all been kind of by accident. I was able to interview Curtis Sliwa when he was running for mayor, and that was just I reached out. So I'm very open to covering anything, and I love to cover things that are kind of out there and odd and maybe even underappreciated. So if anything like that comes along, that's where I would like to focus on.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are interested in having your odd story, or unheard story covered by Owen Russell, definitely reach out to us. You can check out our emails on our issues that are online. But yeah, so thank you so much, Owen.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, and now we're going to be taking a little break and introducing our next guest, Serene Sarsour.
right, we are back with our next guest, also an editor, section editor at the Vanguard, Serene Sarsour. So hi, Serene.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on. And so, Serene, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us how you decided to join the Vanguard, what got you into it.
Yeah, so hi, my name's Serene. I'm a junior at Brooklyn College, majoring in journalism and media studies with a minor in TV and radio. And so ever since I was a little girl, I was always like interested in writing. I always kept a diary. I was always like that one girl in class who like was excited for the essay. So I knew like from a young age that I wanted to pursue writing in some form, but I didn't really know until college that I wanted to pursue journalism. After taking like an intro to journalism or like intro to news writing class, that's what kind of like solidified my interest in journalism. And so I was like, okay, how can I kind of do outside of the classroom work? And then I found out that we have a newspaper here. And so that's how I kind of joined the Vanguard in the summer of last year.
Yeah. Yeah, and, thank God that you came because, yeah, we definitely needed someone like you on our team. And just to preface, too, Serene is our incoming editor-in-chief for the fall, so exciting times. But, yeah, Serene, so for this week, your piece that's coming out tomorrow, you covered a profile on our cartoonist Neetu Farhim. So can you give us a debrief of how she got started into art?
Yeah, so she told me that she didn't really think that there was like a specific age that she got interested in art. It was kind of like a gradual thing throughout her childhood. She would just like pick up a pen and a paper and just would get to work. And then in middle school, she went to like a school that focused on talent. So each student had to choose a talent that they would focus on throughout their years in middle school. So she chose art, and that's when she would start. She started to do self-portraits and different paintings, and that's when she knew that she liked to do art often. In high school, like that kind of like was set on the back burner because she started focusing more on pursuing a pre-med track, but art is still something that she does as a hobby.
That's great. And Neetu is, she took over our cartoon strip, the Vanguard Gazette. And so can you talk a little bit about talking with her on her process that she has to create each episode?
Yeah, so she told me she likes to have it serialized, so like every comic makes sense if you read the one prior to that one. And so after she's done with a comic for the week, she starts thinking about different characteristics or different like plot lines that she could pursue that will make sense. And she said that she gets like inspiration from like K-dramas. So those are some things that like she really takes into consideration.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shout out to K-dramas. Striking inspiration all around. But yeah, and so you two, Neetu and, you, Serene, are fellow colleagues on the masthead at the Vanguard. But you've never met before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how was that like, interviewing a fellow colleague?
That was really cool. I actually I hadn't met her before, so I was a little bit nervous about it only because like I feel like after the pandemic, my social skills have definitely not been like how they used to be. So meeting her, I was like a little bit nervous because I didn't want to like stutter or like pronounce her name wrong or anything. But she was really cool. She was really sweet. So it was like easy to get along with her.
That's really great. And so you can read a little bit more about that and that profile that Serene wrote tomorrow in our 12th issue. But to talk a little bit more about you, Serene, so can you tell us what it's been like writing so far with the Vanguard and maybe what one of your favorite pieces or people to have interviewed was so far?
Yeah, so I've definitely enjoyed my time at the Vanguard so far. Like everyone here is so supportive and welcoming, and so I never felt like alone, or I never felt like there was no one I could ask for help for. So I definitely feel like everything has been pretty smoothly so far. And I think that some people that I loved interviewing was the CUNY for Abortion's rights group, because I just admired how passionate they were about their work and how much effort they put into like pursuing different like protests and like organizing events, and I really like admire that about them. So that's definitely a group that I really love to interview.
Yeah, and typically, like, what are your favorite stories to cover?
Yeah, so usually I really like doing profile pieces on different students and professors at Brooklyn College because I love like interviewing people and I love getting to know like everyone's different stories because I feel like a lot of people like they just have so much going on and they have like so many talents and things that they're pursuing that like no one knows about. So I like to like highlight that you like utilizing the Vanguard.
And I mean, you just brought it up a little bit, but to talk more about that, what's been the most challenging for you having to balance this position as a student journalist, but also juggling studies and campus reporting and, you know, all the fun things in between?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit overwhelming at first. Like at the beginning of the semester, you're trying to like figure out, okay, when am I going to do this? When am I going to do that? And so I keep a planner and I feel like that really helps.
It does.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, this day I'm going to do this assignment. And then tomorrow I'm going to interview someone for the newspaper. And then I'm going to actually sit down and write that feature on like Thursday or Friday. You know, like I think it's all about writing everything down and like keeping up with everything. And after you get like the groove on everything, like that's when it's not as overwhelming, and like remembering that there are other people on the newspaper who are like going through the same things as you, and like people that you can ask for help, like that's definitely something that like keeps me like going.
Yeah, definitely. And overall, like reflecting on your work so far in this past fall with 12 issues under your belt, an additional 12 issues because you've worked on so many before. But are there any stories that you want to cover or follow up on in the spring?
Like as of right now, I can't think of off the top of my head like anything that I want to like follow up on, but I definitely want to do more maybe like BC Reacts. Like that's something that we did a lot last semester and haven't been like we haven't done too many this semester. So definitely like BC Reacts, like going around campus, like kind of on the street reporting. I definitely want to do that more and like more profile pieces to find out like more stories on Brooklyn College that not everyone knows about.
Yeah, definitely. Getting the voice of the people on the paper, on the page. Yeah. All right. Well, if you want to read more of Serene and her work, please make sure to check out the Vanguard. She's going to be sticking around for an extra year. So, yes, exciting times. But yeah, so thank you so much, Serene, for joining us.
And so now we're going to transition a little bit to Allison, who we heard from a little bit before, but she's going to do what she does best and take some news from the headlines to get the BC peeps up to the speed.
Yep. Well, I guess we could start with the story that was breaking news last week, which was Brittany Griner. She has returned back to the United States after being in Russian custody for 10 months. She'd gone to Russia earlier in the year to play basketball during the WNBA offseason, and she was arrested on drug charges. So in order to bring her home, the United States made an exchange with Russia. We got Griner, and the United States gave Russia Victor Bout. He was a convicted Russian arms dealer and was sentenced to 25 years in prison in 2012. And now he's back in Russia, too, and the State Department is telling Americans not to go to Russia. Next on the list, Congress has 1 week to prevent a government shutdown. They face a midnight deadline on Friday, and they have to pass a resolution funding the federal government in order to prevent the shutdown. I believe they're still trying to work out the funding, how they want to allocate the money, and that is what is holding up why they have to pass it, to make sure there is no shutdown. So in other news related to soccer journalist Grant Wall passed away at the age of 49. He was in the media section reporting on the Netherlands game versus Argentina when he collapsed during the match and had later died. He helped grow the popularity of soccer here in the United States and reported on some of the biggest stories. So I think it's safe to say that he will be missed, and there are a lot of big soccer fans here. And well, if we want to keep talking about soccer, in other soccer news, Argentina plays Croatia today in the semifinal at 2 p.m. And tomorrow, Wednesday, France plays Morocco also at 2 p.m. So you can make sure to tune into those games. I'm sure fans are looking forward to it. And if both Croatia and France win their games this year, then it will be a repeat of the 2018 FIFA final where France beat Croatia 4-2. So it's safe to say those games will be entertaining, and I'm excited to see what happens. I wonder if we will have a repeat of the 2018 final. Let's see. And TikTok security This is a big one. If you remember, I believe former President Trump tried getting TikTok to be banned in the U.S. as a whole, but now it's back in the news again because TikTok has more than 1 billion monthly users, and critics are saying that TikTok might know a little too much. So the app tracks what users do, such as what videos they like, what they dislike, and they also collect their personal information, such as their email, phone numbers, addresses, and Wi-Fi networks. So TikTok will look at a person's contacts to see if any of those people are also on the app. And our FBI director, Christopher Wray, has stated, "We do have national security concerns. They include the possibility that the Chinese government could use it to control data collection on millions of users." So because of that, a few states and the military have banned TikTok on government-issued devices due to those fears. So I guess the main thing is for users to be aware that TikTok is probably monitoring your activity closely. But I'd also say the other implications of this piece, of this information on TikTok is the U.S. is kind of worried of how the Chinese government may be able to control what users are seeing in their feed. So that is the main news, I'd say. That's all.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, thank
No
you.
problem.
All right, so wrapping things up a bit here. We have had definitely an interesting and exciting semester with all of our issues. And as we come to a close and as finals are kind of starting up, Gabby, what's been your favorite part, piece, interview of this semester, if you can even remember it? Because I know that I can't.
It was all a blur. Like a club, what is it? A night at the club, but can't relate because, on a deadline, like 24/7. But yeah, I think possibly one of my favorite pieces to cover. I always like a good rally. Just generally speaking, as a student and as someone who likes to be involved and, in the know about things, I think like different rallies are very important and definitely worthwhile to cover. So earlier this semester, there was a Puerto Rican Alliance rally where they were pretty much demanding the college to provide the Puerto Rican and Latino studies an extra tenure line for their staff. So that actually, made some changes. The department actually got their extra tenure line. So they now have the minimum departmental 5 tenure line or tenured professors. So that was probably one of my most important stories that I've covered, and one that I'm proud of. So, how about you, Michaela? Dr. Arlia here.
I have to say I don't have a favorite piece that kind of is number one, but I will say I was really excited to have so many opinions pieces out there this semester. Opinions in sports are something I have not touched in 3 years, and I touched it quite a bit this semester. I'm very proud that my sports pieces were given the blessing to go to print by Owen, because I kind of didn't really know what I was talking about most of the time. But they were good enough to print, so that's good. And I was able to flesh out some really nice opinions that were I got to refine my words a lot in my opinions this semester, which were really nice. So those are definitely my favorite things to work on. And I'm excited to do a little bit more of that next semester.
Yeah. We have 12 more issues left as the 2 lead editors of the paper, so we got to make it count. And we're also returning to print. Just a reminder, we're returning to print in the spring, and hopefully you can find copies of every issue by Thursday. We're still trying to figure out and solidify the actual schedule for printing, but that is our main goal, to have it out on Thursdays, but the issue digitally available online on Wednesdays.
Yes, and look out for those issues. Once they do physically hit the stands, you can find them at most, if not all, of the entrances of all buildings on campus.
Yep. And please be sure to pick them up, It's okay. The trees are already gone. No, I'm kidding. But we have some copies around, and, it's worthwhile to pick up. I'm very sorry. Bad tree joke, but R.I.P. trees. But.
And if you are interested in writing or any type of journalism or even a cartoon or two, you don't have to necessarily be a writer or think you're a writer to join us, please reach out to us either through our social media, especially our Instagram, which is the BC Vanguard, or you can email us at thebcvanguard@gmail.com. We are open to anyone and everyone who has the knack for writing or even just wants to hang around and learn for a bit. Also, you don't have to be a journalism major. A lot of us on the team are not journalism majors, which I think is pretty cool because it allows us to bring in different departments and different stories that you may not be able to know about if you weren't in those departments.
Yeah, so definitely important to note. You don't have to be a JAMS major or a TREM major, so please don't be shy and reach out. And we're also looking for so many editors once we all roll out. About so many, I think like 10 of us are graduating.
It's a big group this year.
Yeah, as last year. So again, if you are a full-time undergraduate student who wants to delve into the newspaper, feel free to hit us up. We're available. And yeah. So
we want to thank you all for joining us, and you can catch our first episode from last week on WBCR's YouTube page.
Yes.
And stay tuned for some more episodes and fun things coming in January as we take a break for finals and holidays. So we'll see you in the new year, and good luck with finals, Brooklyn College.
You got this.